So today we will be reporting rheumatic heart disease together with my partner. So May 1st. So my name is Christian Lordy Dalong. Today we will be reporting rheumatic heart disease. So rheumatic in the definition, rheumatic heart disease is a condition in which heart valves are permanently damaged due to a rheumatic fever, an inflammatory response triggered by untreated and inadequate treated by group A streptococcal infection, such as strep throat and scarlet fever. And then this immune response leads to inflammation of the body, causing the progressive and lasting damage to the heart valves. The condition typically begins with a sore throat caused by bacterium Streptococcus pyogenes, a group A of Streptococcus, which spreads easily through person-to-person transmission similar to upper respiratory tract infections. As you can see, it is caused by an infection, which our immune response leads to inflammation of our body, which leads to damage of our heart valves. So, epidemiology. So, RHD approximately 40 million people globally, higher prevalence of Sahara, Africa, South Asia, and Pacific Islands. Demographics predominantly affects on young adults aged 5 to 25 years old, especially in resource limited settings. So risk factors is poverty, overcrowding, limited access to healthcare, and recurrent gas infection are significant contributors. So here are the signs and symptoms of rheumatic heart disease: coughing, fatigue, palpitations, lightheadedness, swelling, chest pain, shortness of breath, and then weight gain, joint pain, skin changes. On the diagnostic test, we have echocardiography, electrocardiography, and chest X-ray. So, in laboratory test is complete blood counts, or CBC, acute phase reactants, and anti-streptolysinol titer, throat culture, or rapid antigen detection test.
Good day, everyone. My name is Joshi Mariji De Lorino, and I am the partner of Ms. Krisha Ong. To continue with our report, I will be reporting starting from the pathophysiology of rheumatic heart disease. So first off, for the pathophysiology, I will be discussing its non-modifiable factors and its modifiable factors. First is for the non-modifiable factors. First off, genetics. Genetics, because some individuals can have genetic predisposition of developing rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease later on in life. Age. Age, because individuals that are of younger age, specifically 5 to 25 years of age, are more prone on to getting this disease. Socioeconomic status. Individuals and families who are part of the lower income or of the poorer socioeconomic status are at higher risk because they also have lesser access to health facilities. Geographical conditions. As discussed in the epidemiology of rheumatic heart disease, um, this disease is more prevalent in areas or regions such as the sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and many more. Now for the modifiable factors. First is strep throat or pharyngitis prevention. When the strep throat is given early medical attention, such as having antibiotic therapy, then the individual is less likely to get strep. The individual is less likely to get rheumatic heart disease and rheumatic fever. Hygiene or personal hygiene. This is done to prevent the spread of infection, healthcare access, living conditions, such as it's different to socioeconomic status. Those part of the higher socioeconomic status are less likely prone to getting these diseases. And number five is health educating or health education. Having access to health education and getting health education makes you less likely to get these diseases because you are more aware of what you have to do and how these diseases are being obtained or gained. Now to continue with our pathophysiology, in the earlier slide, I was able to discuss the modifiable and the non-modifiable factors of rheumatic heart disease. Now to proceed is we'll begin with its streptococcal pharyngitis. So what is streptococcal pharyngitis? This is also known as the strep throat. This is the infection of the throat and the tonsils, which is caused by streptococcal bacteria, which is the group A beta hemolytic Streptococcus pyogenes. So you can see here, streptococcal pharyngitis as well as rheumatic fever. Now you may ask, what is the connection of streptococcal pharyngitis to rheumatic fever? Well, rheumatic fever is an inflammatory disease that's developed and is known as a complication of strep throat or scarlet fever, which is also due to streptococcal bacteria. So after that, we can see strep bacterium present, so meaning that the streptococcal bacteria is present, and then M protein on the cell surface. Now you may ask, what is M protein? M protein is known as a surface protein that is used or helps the bacteria or the streptococcal bacteria to evade the host's immune system. And it is also known to resist engulfing or destroying or being destroyed by the immune cells. So because of what the M protein does or its purpose, this triggers the immune system to have an immune response to the streptococcal antigens. The antigens being mentioned here as well are the M proteins itself. So to continue, the immune system produces antibodies to target these antigens. But in here, we can see that the antibodies does a antibody cross reactivity with the body's own tissues. This is what we all call the autoimmune response or the autoimmune, which is here in the table. So this also occurs because the antibodies would bind to the tissues of the body as they mistakenly see this as the bacterial antigens like in protein. So what does this mean? Now let's go back to M protein on the cell surface. So after the M protein, we move to molecular mimicry. As being said in the antibody cross-reactivity is we have molecular mimicry. When we say molecular mimicry is when there is similarity in the structural similarities indicated. So why it connects to the tissues of the body is because this protein has similar structure to our tissue and also between the endogenous membrane proteins in the heart, the skin, and the connective tissue. Now, let's go back to the immune response to the streptococcal antigens, moving forward to the autoimmune response. Now, for the autoimmune response, because of the fact that the antibody binds to the tissues of the body, this causes or triggers an inflammatory response. And this triggers the inflammatory mediators such as cytokines to signal one's immune system. So after the inflammatory response is the acute phase of rheumatic fever. And um, this phase is where changes in the vascular permeability or high macrophage and PMN activity occurs. PMN also is known as polymorphonuclear activity. So here, during this phase also, we can see that the immune system attacks the tissues of our bodies. So because of that, we can see that our subcutaneous tissue is affected, joint tissue, our skin, arteritis, spondylitis, and endocarditis. So what happens to our subcutaneous tissues? Because all of these are being destroyed because as an immune response, the subcutaneous tissue leads to erythema marginatum, joint tissue leads to transient arthralgia, skin, cutaneous nodules, arteritis, syndinous chorea, and so now we go back to pancreatitis. In pancreatitis, this refers to the inflammation of the three layers of the heart. So under here, um, as part of the rheumatic fever, pancreatitis is a complication. So here we can see that under pancreatitis, we have acute swelling of the heart tissues. So when we have acute swelling of the heart tissues, this leads to CHF, CHF is what we refer to as a chronic heart failure, and the other one is decreased ventricular filling capacity. Other than this, we have pericardial exudates. Now, another one is endocarditis. So, what is endocarditis? So, endocarditis involves inflammation of the inner lining, particularly affecting the heart's valve. Now, let's go back to inflammatory response. As we are done with the acute phase, now we will move on to the chronic phase. So, in the chronic phase, um, under this is the rheumatic heart disease. So what is rheumatic heart disease? This is the cardiac manifestation of rheumatic fever. This is also caused by the group A streptococcus, streptococcal bacteria. So this is caused by the damage to the heart valves, and this leads to the inflammation and scarring from the rheumatic fever. Now we proceed. We go to neovascularization and high fibroblast activity. So first off is what is neovascularization. Neovascularization is the what we refer to as the formation of new blood vessels. This occurs as a response to inflammation and injury to the heart valves. The heart valves usually involved when we have rheumatic heart disease is the mitral valve and the aortic valve. Now is the fibroblast activity. The high fibroblast activity is activated to repair um these damaged valve tissues. So it focuses on the tissue. So under this, specifically more on the high fibroblast activity, the production of excessive collagen and extracellular matrix protein leads to the thickening and scarring of the valve tissues, which leads to the valve losing its elasticity and as well as its flexibility. And also, this leads to the impairment of its normal function. Now, um, so we can see under here, when it's under buildup of fibrotic, we can see that there is fibrous thickening. So, other than fibrous thickening, there's calcification of the valve leaflets and fusion of commissures. So, for calcification of the valve leaflets, under here, this occurs which when it makes the valve more rigid. So under that we have so now as the heart valves have loosened its normal functioning, has become a different texture or structure. It's since it becomes more rigid and less flexible, so it leads to two valve dysfunctions. These two valve dysfunctions are stenosis and regurgitation. So stenosis, this refers to the narrowing of a heart valve which restricts blood flow. So specifically what restricts more often is the mitral valve and the aortic valve. So other than stenosis is we have regurgitation. Regurgitation refers to the backward flow of blood because of how the heart valve wouldn't close properly. This leads the blood flow moving back to the host. So that's all for pathophysiology. Now let's move on to the next slide. Now we will proceed with the medical management of rheumatic heart disease. First is antibiotic therapy. Continuous antibiotic prophylaxis is recommended for patients with history of acute rheumatic fever or rheumatic heart disease. This is to prevent recurrence. Prompt treatment of all group A beta hemolytic streptococcal pharyngitis is with oral penicillin B, whereas penicillin G benzathine or erythromycin is used for patients with penicillin hypersensitivity. Anti-inflammatory medications such as aspirin and corticosteroids are used to relieve pain and swelling. Medications such as diuretics, ACE inhibitors, or beta blockers to manage heart failure symptoms and to improve heart function. Now, surgical interventions. Surgical interventions may be necessary. Procedures such as valve repair or valve replacement, as well as balloon valvotomy or commissurotomy, are used to improve the patient's quality of life. So in this slide, we can see the surgical interventions, valve repair, and valve replacement. So what is done during these procedures? In valve repair, it fixes the damaged or diseased heart valve. It uses little to none artificial parts as much as possible. Whereas in valve replacement, it replaces the malfunctioning heart valve. This procedure is done when efforts of fixing the malfunctioning heart valve fails. And in this slide, we can also see the other surgical intervention, which is balloon valvotomy or commissurotomy. In balloon valvotomy, it is used to increase the opening of a narrow valve. It is used for selected patients who have mitral valve stenosis with symptoms. It is usually used in young patients, teens, and young adults, and it is less effective in older patients. Now we will proceed with the nursing management. First is you have to obtain the patient's history, their medical and health history. Now, second is you conduct regular cardiovascular assessment and auscultate for heart sound. Now, monitor for their vital signs, administer prescribed medication, example, anti-inflammatory drugs to manage inflammation and pain. Provide proper pain relief measures to monitor and manage the patient's pain level. Have strict bed rest for the patient with active carditis to reduce cardiac demands. Monitor fluid intake and output to prevent fluid overload and provide the patient with emotional support. Now as we proceed with the patient education and health maintenance. First is we counsel the patient to maintain good nutrition. Counsel and discuss the patient on hygienic practices, such as proper hand washing. And lastly, provide the patient teaching on the importance of having adequate rest. Now let's proceed with the complications of rheumatic heart disease. First is heart failure. Heart failure is the most common cause of death and disability in rheumatic heart disease. This is because scarred and damaged heart valves make it difficult for the heart to pump blood effectively. And because of this, there will be fluid buildup in the lungs and body. Next is atrial and ventricular arrhythmia, bacterial endocarditis, ruptured heart valve, pulmonary hypertension, complications of pregnancy and delivery due to heart damage. And some of these conditions increases the risk of stroke and blood clots.
Prognosis. This will be the last. So rheumatic heart disease depends on the severity of the condition, timely diagnosis, and access to medical care. In mild cases, patient can lead to normal lives with proper management, including antibiotic prophylaxis to prevent recurrent infection. Moderate cases often require close monitoring and symptom management to prevent disease progression. Early diagnosis and consistent treatment, including secondary prevention and patient education, are critical to improving long-term outcomes. However, global disparities in healthcare access result of poorer prognosis in low-income regions, where RHD remains leading cause of cardiovascular mortality. So, it is you can have a you can lead it. You can also treat, but you can lead a normal life with a proper treatment and proper treatment and proper medication, as long as you listen to your healthcare provider. That would be all. Thank you.